Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Mark Martin. Today, the Omicron variant continues to spread rapidly.
It seems to be overtaking all the other variants, including Delta.
We will bring you the latest on the pandemic. Plus, one woman describes how COVID has taken a toll on the Native American community.
To lose them one by one was so devastating and, so heartbreaking. To see so many of our people die from this.
Then, the goal for the movie series The Chosen is to reach 1 billion people. The goal is now growing as it premieres in France.
It was different from other films about Jesus. It was just fantastic, I can say.
All these stories and more are next.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin this half hour with the centerpiece of Joe Biden's domestic agenda, the $2 trillion Build Back Better spending package. It's been dealt a possibly fatal blow by a fellow Democrat who calls it bad for America. Dale Hurd has more in our top story.
Joe Biden's top legislative goal could be dead thanks to a member of his own party who says he just can't vote for it. West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin made the announcement Sunday.
I cannot vote to continue with this piece of legislation. I just can't. I've tried everything humanly possible. I can't get there.
You're done. This is a no.
This is a no.
Manchin said he opposes the expensive package Republicans have called a welfare goodie bag because of concerns about inflation and growing federal debt.
The inflation that I was concerned about, it's not transitory, it's real, it's harming every West Virginian.
The House in November had already passed the legislation that puts significant funding toward fighting climate change, paid family leave and child care, free college and free health care. While the spending package is advertised as $2 trillion over 10 years and the White House has claimed its true cost would be zero, one study showed its real cost would be $4.6 trillion. Manchin also accused Democrats in a written statement of trying to dramatically reshape our society in a way that leaves our country even more vulnerable to the threats we face. The far left in the Democratic Party, the so-called progressive wing, was furious.
Well, I think he's going to have a lot of explaining to do to the people of West Virginia, to tell them why he doesn't have the guts to take on the drug companies and lower the cost of prescription drugs, why he is not prepared to expand home health care. West Virginia is one of the poorest states in this country.
Manchin has been signaling his opposition for months, but White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki called Manchin's announcement a sudden and inexplicable reversal in his position and a breach of his commitments to Biden and congressional Democrats. Democrats are hoping Manchin could still vote for a slimmed-down version of the legislation, but it would have to be much smaller, something progressives in his party could find hard to accept. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Now to the latest on the COVID-19 pandemic. Health experts are warning of another COVID surge with Delta and also predicting the Omicron variant to become the dominant strain in a few weeks. Dr. Fauci says Omicron is spreading rapidly.
It seems to be overtaking all the other variants, including Delta, with a doubling time of about 2 to 3 days, which means that this is really something to be reckoned with.
Omicron is spreading to nearly all states. Studies show it could spread up to 3 times faster than Delta, with the risk of reinfection more than 5 times higher than Delta. Hospital admissions are now up 41% nationwide, and several big events were postponed, including the NBA and NFL. Broadway shows in New York also canceled events due to the surge. Democratic Senators Elizabeth Warren and Cory Booker tested positive for COVID-19. They made the announcement Sunday. In statements, they said they have been fully vaccinated, including getting booster shots. They say their symptoms are mild so far. Israel announced travel bans to the U.S. and other countries. Prime Minister Naftali Bennett says the ban is a result of growing concerns of the Omicron variant. He says cabinet ministers voted to impose the ban after advice from the health ministry COVID coverage continues later in the show, and coming up, we're going to take you to Montana, where a Native American tribe is dealing with devastating effects from COVID-19. Here's a quick look at some other stories making headlines in the CBN newsroom. More than 200 people are dead and around 52 people missing after a typhoon hits the Philippines. The typhoon hit with sustained winds spanning 121 miles with gusts of 168 miles per hour. Now the area is dealing with power outages and debris on roads and major repairs. Closing arguments are set today in the trial of ex-officer Kim Potter. She's the Minnesota police officer who says she meant to use her taser instead of a gun that shot and killed 20-year-old Dante Wright. She is being charged with first and second-degree manslaughter. After American soldier Taylor Force was killed by a terrorist, his parents began a campaign to end the Palestinian government policy known as pay to slay. They won a major victory in 2018 when the Taylor Force Act became law. Now they recently discovered their work isn't finished. CBN News Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson brings us more on their latest fight.
Stewart and Robbie Force are back on Capitol Hill, working to pass legislation that goes further than the Taylor Force Act. They want to close a loophole allowing banks to make payments to terrorists.
We've recently come to the realization that the job is half done. And the truth is the payments have continued, and those responsible have not been held accountable.
After serving tours in both Afghanistan and Iraq, Force's son Taylor was stabbed to death by a Palestinian terrorist in 2016.
Family of the Hamas terrorist who murdered Taylor, who's celebrated as a hero by Hamas, has been receiving martyr payments as reward for his despicable act.
The new legislation targets banks in the Middle East that continue to process martyr payments.
The Taylor Force Martyr Payment Prevention Act would give the Treasury Department the ability to designate these banks as institutions of primary money laundering concern and forbid them from using correspondent accounts in the United States.
Currently, the banks avoid sanctions by not keeping an official presence in the United States.
To those banks playing this game, your time is up.
Senator Lindsey Graham is confident the bill will pass, although Senator Mike Braun tells CBN News he's not so sure.
Sadly, it would take some type of miracle to get that across the finish line, but what it does give any of us is the ability to use the microphone to talk about it, because many people probably don't even realize that is happening.
While introduced by more than a dozen GOP senators, Braun believes it could be a slow process moving through the Senate, and he's not sure it can pass the House right now. Reporting from Washington, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
A popular destination in Jerusalem is using the downtime during the pandemic for a major restoration project. As Chris Mitchell reports, the goal is to have it ready in time to welcome visitors from around the world back to the city.
The Tower of David Museum stands as a citadel, guarding the entrance to Jerusalem's Old City. Some see it as one of the crown jewels of the city.
The only museum in the world that tells the full story of Jerusalem, 4,000 years of rich history. Inside this magnificent citadel of the city represent all the layers from the history of Jerusalem.
This week, the museum held a groundbreaking for a new pavilion and welcome center next to the Jaffa Gate. The Jaffa Gate serves as the main gateway into the old city of Jerusalem. With this new entrance and welcome center, the Tower of David Museum wants to increase the experience for millions of visitors to the most unique city in the world.
Visitors will be able to enter the citadel from the west, enjoy the archaeology and history, and exit through the original Ottoman gate of the citadel straight to the streets of the old city with the knowledge and experience from the Tower of David as the perfect introduction to Jerusalem.
The groundbreaking marked the halfway point of a multi-million-dollar restoration and conservation project. CBN News has chronicled this effort to modernize the museum, excavate ancient artifacts, and conserve treasures like this tower built by King Herod during the time of Jesus. Now the focus is the new Welcome Center. The construction presented a daunting engineering challenge. How do you dig down more than 50 feet next to a 500-year-old wall without making it collapse?
The engineering challenges were really unbelievable in its sensitivity and problematic, because we are building a building next to a very important wall of the citadel, which is 10 meters high, and we need to go 7-8 meters deep, and we need to make sure that nothing happens to this wall.
Kimmel shows how they met the challenge.
What you see now is a stage where we can sleep at night, because there is already a concrete wall. There are the metal beams that support and know that we are safe.
Alongside the engineering comes the archaeology, where many finds were examined in the laboratory.
It is once-in-a-generation opportunity to dig the citadel. The last excavations conducted in the late 1980s.
Notes and pictures from a British archaeologist more than 100 years ago helped guide Israeli archaeologists to find artifacts from Jerusalem's 3,000-year-old history, from Ottoman-era smoking pipes to the time of the First Temple. Those involved in the project feel a sense of history.
It's really one of the most exciting projects an architect can hope for, to work inside history and give a new, let's say, a new life to this history and make it accessible for everybody.
The completion of this project is expected by November 2022. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, the Tower of David Museum, the Old City of Jerusalem.
Coming up, Native Americans are being hit hard by COVID-19. So what's being done to protect this vulnerable community? We have this story next. People were dying left and right. That's how one man described the devastating toll that COVID has taken on his Native American community. Throughout the country, infection rates are much higher among the Native American population overall. I traveled to Montana to see what's being done to fight the deadly outbreak. For Native Americans, family and community are extremely important, and those relationships have not escaped the pandemic's reach. Crow Tribe member Donna Stansover shared about the loss.
To lose them one by one was so devastating and, so heartbreaking. To see so many of our people die from this. And it's like the outside world doesn't understand what we're going through.
She and husband Russell began Arrow Creek International Ministries and have had to lead during these hard times.
There was a period in our ministry time where we just couldn't accept all the requests for funeral officiating because there were so many. People were dying left and right.
I'm here in front of the Crow Northern Cheyenne Indian Hospital in Crow Agency, Montana. The Crow Tribe especially has been hit hard by the pandemic. Its reservation sits in Bighorn County, which at one point had the state's highest infection rate and one of the highest in the country.
It was devastating. We were pretty close.
Wes Bremner, who lost his half-brother, lives on the Blackfeet Reservation in northwestern Montana.
We like to gather in groups and all the time, and anymore, it's just unheard of. We're all isolated and separated, and we hardly ever see each other.
In addition to high COVID infection rates, the American Indians and Alaska Natives suffer higher hospitalization and death rates than Asian, Black, Hispanic, and white persons.
COVID in Indian countries had a substantial impact. It just, even in my family alone, it killed one of my grandfathers, several of my cousins, 2 or 3 of my friends, younger guys, early 40s that I went to high school with, they passed away from it. Several of them pretty healthy people.
Montana State Senator Jason Small lives on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation. He blames healthcare disparities, geographical segregation, and multi-generational housing for the devastating impact.
You have grandparents, you have parents, you have kids and grandchildren all living in the same house. You might have 10, 12, 14 people in the house. There may be an automobile for that house. There may not be.
Montana Governor Greg Gianforte tells CBN News his administration has made Native Americans a priority in the COVID fight.
We adopted a very simple rule. We said, let's get the vaccine to the people most vulnerable. First, our healthcare workers. Next, elderly, and we included Native peoples in that. They came right behind the healthcare workers. And working together with the tribal governments here in Montana, we've seen very high vaccination rates, and this has helped protect those communities.
Alejandro Coca is the director of the Absaluca Service Corporation on the Crow Reservation. His team and Crow leaders provide personal protective equipment and places to quarantine for tribal members.
Everybody should take this serious, and everybody should not only think of themselves, but think of others. Those elders, not just Crow people elders, but Montana elders, Arizona elders, Wisconsin elders, New York elders, their valuable knowledge is sitting there and is at risk to lose their life because of COVID.
As Donna stands over Bull and her people fight against weariness, she knows the importance of prayer and hope.
For the people out there, you know, just to continue to pray for us, because we certainly need that prayer, and that this COVID would end.
Definitely pray for Native America. Well, still ahead, see how the TV series The Chosen is advancing its goal to reach 1 billion people. Stay with us. Reaching 1 billion people, that's the goal for The Chosen, the first TV series about the life of Jesus. Over 300 million people have already seen it in 50 languages. Now it's premiering in another major country, France. George Thomas brings us that story from Paris.
The experience of playing was just made me want to be more like him.
Walking along Paris's famed Champs-Élysées this week, actor Jonathan Rumi
I have something that's open to all people. Get up and walk.
If he was supposed to be healed, God would have done it himself.
That's an interesting point.
who plays Jesus in the television series The Chosen,
You have certainly livened things up around here.
Word travels fast.
tells CBN News that he's humbled by how God is using the show to touch millions of people around the world.
Do you often pinch yourself, realizing the magnitude of the role that you're playing and how well the show has done?
I don't know if I pinched myself. I more bow my head to the ground because I never feel that I'm worthy of the things that are happening as a result.
Je suis vraiment navrée, mais je ne sais même pas ton nom.
Je suis Jésus.
3 years after its premiere episode, the series now hits television screens for the first time across France, airing on one of this country's top TV channels.
To be on a major network is a first. We love our platform. We love having a free app that's available to the whole world, but to be embraced by Canal Plus has been such an honor.
Rumi and cast members joined some 500 people for a showing of The Chosen at this Paris movie theater ahead of next week's broadcast, many watching it for the first time.
The intimacy between the disciple and Jesus is very much.
It was different from other films about Jesus. It was just fantastic, I can say.
I make a way for people to access that kingdom.
The Chosen is the first ever multi-season TV show about the life of Jesus. And even though it's free to watch on their app, fans have given more than $40 million towards the production budget, making it the largest crowd-funded media venture in entertainment history.
16 episodes of The Chosen have so far been translated into 50 languages. And as of today's taping, more than 321 million people around the world have watched the television series. Angel Studios, which handles distribution, plans to dub the series in the top 25 languages that are spoken in the world, with hopes of initially reaching 1 billion people.
We can't reach 1 billion just in English. So to reach 1 billion people, we have to unlock more languages.
Eric Sellerier, one of France's prominent evangelicals, is praying the show will unlock hearts and minds of his countrymen.
My hope is that people will connect not with the show, but with Jesus through the characters in the show.
Sellerier has mobilized hundreds of French pastors and Catholic leaders to hold follow-up ministry and discipleship programs over the course of The Chosen 7-season broadcast. An additional 3,500 Christians have volunteered to hold small groups in their homes and other locations to discuss the series.
We are preparing the fields, we are preparing the hearts with season 1, but I hope that season after season, people will connect more and more with Jesus.
Well, I mean, I think
that's Rumi's prayer as well, posting on Instagram that he believes God is tilling the soil and sowing seeds for a fertile revival.
Is that what you hope will happen as a result of the showing of The Chosen?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's already happening, and I think we're an additional element of that story.
Si on est obligé de se poser des questions.
I'm just honored to be a part of it.
Ce voyage va être très pénible pour nous tous.
George Thomas, CBN News, Paris.
God is on the move all around the world. Well, stay with us. You are watching CBN NewsWatch. Police officers and a Good Samaritan came to the rescue of a 74-year-old woman who lost control of her car and ended up submerged in the Des Plaines River. Police say the woman crashed into a bus shelter, then went down an embankment and into the river. The officers busted out a window, pulled the woman out, and together they all stood on the sinking car until fire personnel arrived. The officer says he'd do it again if needed. Some special holiday treats for the animals at a zoo in Lima, Peru. Lions and tigers playing with large cardboard tubes filled with meat, and the resident dromedaries feasted on wreaths. Even Santa took part in the festivities, helping hand out treats to the giraffes. That's it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, be sure to tell us what you think about the stories you've seen by emailing newswatch@cbn.com. Or you can talk to us on social media. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.